Welcome to Life in the Leadership Lane. I'm your host, Bruce Waller, where I'm getting to talk to leaders that are making a difference in the workplace and in the community. How did they get started in their career and what are they doing to stay there? And today, well, I have a very special guest. I'm getting to talk to my good friend, Paige Lueckemeyer. Paige is the HR director at Black Mountain Sand. She's also a volunteer leader. We actually got to know each other at Dallas HR, where she's volunteered for many years, as well as the HRSouthwest conference. So we're going to talk about that today. She is also certified with her SPHR and SHRM-CP, and I'm so glad to have you on the show today. Good to see you, Paige.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Listen, it's been too long since COVID back in March. Now here we are 6 months later in September. We're getting to chat, and I'm really excited to talk to you today. We're going to talk leadership. We're going to talk in particular. We're going to talk about HR leadership, but we're also going to talk about the HR Southwest conference and volunteer leadership. But before we get into all that, I would love for you just to kind of start by sharing a little bit about your company. You're the HR director for Black Mountain Sand. I would love for you to just share kind of a brief overview of how you serve your customers.
Yeah. I love that you asked me immediately about our customers, because those are always, that's the number one thing that we focus on, both internally and externally. Internally, I've got all my employees who are all my customers. But then also we focus as a company on the outward view of our customers that we serve. So Black Mountain Sand, if you haven't heard of it, it is a in-basin frac sand provider. So we service the oil and gas industry by providing frac sand, which is our product that we sell to oil and gas companies in the Permian, Eagle Ford, and Mid-Con basins. And overall, the goal of what we do is we sell a superior product that in the overall sense of things, increases the well efficiency that they're drilling, increases their cost and the efficiency of the product that they're producing too. So we focus on providing a superior product through having well-trained employees that can do their jobs efficiently. We have trucks that can come into our facilities, they pick up their loads, and they leave in under 8 minutes, which is like record time when you are driving a truck into a facility, getting a load of sand, which can be, anywhere from 15,000 to 22,000 tons on a truck, and then hauling it off down the road wherever it goes. So that's kind of what in a little nutshell, that's what Black Mountain Sand does.
And so Black Mountain Sand, based in, you're in Fort Worth, Texas?
We're headquartered in Fort Worth, Texas. And then, as I said, we've got 5 operating facilities in the 3 closest regional basins to the Fort Worth area.
Okay, that's fantastic. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. We're going to talk about a lot of stuff today. I'm really, really excited about this. I know that you have a degree from Texas A&M with a communication and journalism. Woo! Yes, there it is. There's that whoop. And then I also know that you have a master's degree from LSU, the defending college football champions.
Go Tigers. Yes.
So I would love for you, to just kind of start today by just sharing the Paige Lueckemeyer story. Like, where did you grow up and how in the world did you get into HR? And so share that story for the listeners and viewers.
Well, that's a long story, so I'll give you the Cliff Note version. I was born and raised in a town called Glen Rose, Texas, which is about 45 minutes southwest of Fort Worth. So I have always kind of looked at the Dallas-Fort Worth area as home to me. It's a tiny little town. If you've ever been out there, it's lovely to go visit. It's a wonderful kind of staycation, Dallas, easy road trip location. But we always, everything we needed was always in Dallas and Fort Worth because it's kind of a little tiny one stoplight town. So I grew up there my entire life and decided as soon as I graduated high school, I was getting out of there as fast as possible, which tends to be the storyline of every small town kid. So yeah, I went to A&M, got my degree. I went there on an agricultural scholarship, which agriculture has been a huge part of kind of my foundational education and career. So went there and I got my ag comm degree, focused on journalism. The way that I got out to LSU was I snagged a job in Baton Rouge working at a news station. And I was a producer for 6 o'clock newscast. And I did that for about 4 to 5 months. As soon as and it was the first job right out the gate, which is a pretty big deal to be a producer for a 6 o'clock newscast. But what I quickly learned was that I wasn't getting fulfilled in that area of having the interaction with people. You know, news producers spend a lot of time behind the computer, inputting stories, preparing the show for it to run at 6 o'clock every night. And then every day you start over and it's the same thing. And I just quickly kind of found that I wasn't getting fulfilled in the right areas. And I did a really scary thing to do at that point in life, which is to quit your job and walk away and go, this isn't exactly what I thought it was. I'm done. So I was in Baton Rouge, had nothing else kind of going on. I had gone to a staffing agency, got a job working for a nonprofit foundation in Baton Rouge, which was really super rewarding for the time that I worked there. I learned how, you know, that whole process of applying for grants and having money and dispersing it and just how that whole thing kind of works. So that was very influential to me. At the time I was there, my boss was a big LSU supporter. I was sitting there kind of going like, well, what do I do now? You know, what do I do? Do I go to school? Do I work and do this? And so luckily I was able to work full time and I got into LSU and got my master's degree in HR. And you know, it's funny, I remember going down the list of saying like, you know, you decide like, okay, I'm going to go to a school. And then you decide, well, what am I going to go for? And because at the time I probably felt so, I think just, I was kind of starving for that in interaction with people. I want to do something where I get to see people and do things. And like HR, it was just like no decision was needed. HR was what I wanted to do. And lucky enough, I got into the program, got my master's degree, and then I was kind of, I mean, Katie barred the door, that was it. I knew that's what I wanted to do.
Wow. That's fantastic. Oh man, that is absolutely fantastic. Okay. First of all, there's so much there. First of all, I've been to Glen Rose, Texas a few times. Love. You know, with DFW like continuing to grow like it is, Glen Rose is just going to be a suburb before it's over with. But
it really will.
It's amazing. So, okay, I've heard this story before. This 6 o'clock news. By the way, that's cool. Like producer. So, what's even more cool to me is that whenever you like use the word fulfilled, and you just walked away. And a lot of times I think that, you know, in our careers, we're missing that, but we don't know how to do that. So, you know, you mentioned that, and, you know, one of the things I always talk about is, you know, how did you know you found your lane? So you said HR is what I want to do. So you said, yep, I just know it. However, as we all know, you really don't know until you get into your career. So talk a little bit about, you know, you went to several different organizations before you landed at Black Mountain. When did you know, like when you were actually in your career, was there like an episode, or was there a moment, or just over time you're just like, this is just what it's validated what I love?
You know, it's kind of funny. You have these moments that happen and you don't know that and you live these moments and you don't know at the moment that it's going to define something for you. And then you keep living a couple years and you look back and you're like, oh, wow, that defined something for me. And so when I was thinking about this, you know, I knew I wanted to get an HR degree. I knew I wanted to do HR because of that people aspect. I'm extremely extroverted. Like I get my energy from seeing people, talking to people, interacting with people. Like my husband hates it because when I don't see people, he's like, quit talking to me. So, you know, I knew that I needed to be in a career that gave me the opportunity to interact with a lot of different people. I think that when I got into HR, when I decided I'm going to study HR, I had been working at that nonprofit organization, and I just remember feeling so, like you say, fulfilled, and my bucket was full because
Mm,
I had interacted with different people. I had connected them to a need that they needed. They come to that organization, they're applying for money that they need to do for all kinds of different projects in the community. And I think seeing how fulfilled those people felt with the interaction that I was giving them, that's kind of what sort of connected the dots to me about, okay, I need to do something with a career that can help me do that. And HR was the one that provided it. It's an opportunity to help people in so many different areas. You can do recruiting where you help people connect them to jobs, or you can do training where you help connect people to new skills. I think just a lot of the same kind of aspects in that are played out in different scenarios, helping people, connecting them, giving them help. For me, it was like, if I can have a career that can help other people feel like something was foggy, I couldn't figure out point A to point B, and I helped make them see where point B is,
mm.
then for some reason that just made me feel, fulfilled, and feel like helping people move along their career was something I wanted to do. As is the case with, I think, a lot of people that get into HR, you find out that there's so much more involved.
Right.
You learn, like, oh, there's employment law, and there's payroll law, and there's things that, there's so many more things you find out after you get into it that they don't tell you in the degree program.
Like, I don't
So
remember that being in school, right?
no. um, but lucky enough, I've been blessed to actually enjoy those things that I've
Yeah.
also discovered along the way. I graduated from LSU, and oil and gas is a big industry in South Louisiana. And when I graduated, I was my forefront of my brain was job security. I need to get somewhere with an HR job, or HR function related job, anything. When you graduate, you're like, I'll take anything. But oil and gas was the biggest thing. And while I had worked at a couple of those kind of odd jobs I mentioned from a staffing agency, I had a long-term contract at a company called Stone Energy, where I actually got in as an intern to scan well logs. And so I worked with this geologist, and I helped him scan his well logs. And he taught me so much in that time that I was there. He literally was like, I know all about the oil and gas industry. What do you want to know about it? And he would tell me anything and everything I wanted to know. And I spent a lot of time scanning these logs, learning kind of the science, the geology that goes into oil and gas. And I think that's really kind of where I found my passion of, like, oh my gosh, I love this industry. I love all it has to offer. And they need HR people. So that was kind of like, ta-da.
I love that. No, I love that. And I can relate to that. You talk about how, connecting with people and helping them, really adding value, right, to
Mhm.
people. And you're talking about, helping become more clear about different, I think that is so cool. I was actually thinking about, you know, you were talking about this gentleman helping you scan these logs and
Which is
how.
such like a menial task, right?
Right. Yeah, but he was really doing more than that. He was really mentoring you along the way. And so, I mean, that's one of the things I always love to talk about, and because I think that's important, is the mentorship part of it. And I would love your perspective on, who were some of the mentors that have helped you get to where you are today? I mean, it can be family, it can be coworkers, it can be who were they, and give me a couple of, I mean, you shared a little bit about the person helping you scan logs. I mean, what traits, what were they doing to help you along the way?
Um, I mean, specifically in that case, getting to sit there and say, why are there different layers of rock in the earth?
Mm,
Why do they move at different ways that they move? He would sit down and just draw out diagrams and show me all the ways that things worked. And I think, I'm a very curious person to begin with. I love to ask questions. I love to think, I always talk about being a continuous lifelong learner, but I always, want to seek understanding
mm,
in things, just because that helps me better set kind of the foundation. I don't like to make judgments. I don't like to make, opinions about things until I have some sort of understanding of what it is. And so I think, you know, he was really mentoring me in that respect to also continue to learn to be curious and continue to seek that understanding. In every time I went and asked him a question, he would give me kind of a science lesson about oil and gas, because you know, here I am, this little, you know, scanning intern. He would give me that knowledge I was seeking, and I learned, you know, that's something I think I crave all the time, is seeking knowledge about things and continuing to learn and build on those, because there's so much in your career, in your education. There's so much to know. And I think that that's one of our kind of, as you think about like, what's my purpose kind of thing, you continue to be a learner and a seeker of knowledge and understanding and all things that make our world go around, because in HR, our life is changing every day. The things we deal with, hello, COVID, you know,
Right.
you had to just change on the fly. And so I think part of something that has kind of made me successful is definitely that mentor relationship. I really feel like set the path and kind of led me on that trajectory. But also, as I've sat and kind of reflected about mentors, I've had so many mentors throughout every phase of life. And sometimes you don't realize they were actually mentoring you. I look back on my child, you know, you talk about, can be personal, business. I look back on my childhood, and, you know, I had mentors because I had these neighbors that I would go visit, and kind of adopted them as my own grandparents. They were much older, and I mean, they loved me to death and probably wished I would go home. But, you know, I had those mentors as a child to kind of help steer me along the right path of right and wrong and learning things. I had a long-term relationship. I still have a relationship with my high school ag teacher. He was so incredibly influential in who I developed and became today as an HR professional. He helped give me, I mean, I can remember specific instances where I was like, I'm going to give up and I'm going to quit, and this isn't for me. And he sat me down in his office and he said, what do you want to do? What are your goals? And helped me understand, no, I'm not ready to quit. And I've maintained a relationship with him, like, still to this day. I love him to death. I could go on and on about how many wonderful things he did for me. I think one of the biggest things is he helped push me in getting out there in front of people and getting comfortable with public speaking and talking to people and learning to connect with people. I did that a lot throughout my ag career. I showed animals, but I also entered every contest possible. So, you know, I always did, I did a lot of public speaking, and also, you know, that's probably where I learned, picked up the knack for some leadership, because I know you won't be surprised to find this out, I held leadership positions in my chapter, as well as at the district level, you know, so.
No way.
Yeah. So seeking, you know, I think I've always been led to seek a leadership position and be in front of people, because, you know, it's weird. It's like, that's my comfort zone. You know, the idea of public speaking is scary to people, because you have to get up in sometimes you don't know how many people you're about to get up in front of. You have to stand up there, the spotlight's on you. And for me, that's a calming place to talk to people, to share any kind of topic, to be courageous enough to get up there and be silly in front of them and help connect on that human level. Because I think that's also super important, is, you know, getting, you know, having the calmness to get up there in front of people. And, you know, that really came through, I think, when I got the opportunity to be on the Dallas HR committee, on the board. I've served for 3 years over the course of different positions, working with the student engagement committee. And that was so rewarding, because I was still close enough to those students to know what's going on, to feel the same feelings they're feeling, but also removed enough to say, you know, this is how I connected my student involvement and career and education to now where I'm at in a job, which is exactly what they're doing. They're trying to navigate the world like that. So to get to kind of turn around and play mentor too to a lot of students was really rewarding for me. And, you know, I think just continuing to find those areas where you can give that kind of give back. I get fulfilled and then I want to give it all back. And I get fulfilled and I want to give it all back. So it's kind of how my world goes around.
I got to tell you, that's a great story with your ag teacher. What a blessing, like to have
Yeah.
someone that would challenge you, right? And that would push you to do the hard stuff early so it would come easy later. I got to tell you, your kids are probably going to love you and hate you because you're probably going to do what he did to you. You're going to get them out there. That's one of the biggest things that I think, we're talking about college students and coming out of college, even entry level people that we talk to that are in their entry level, even some in their mid career.
Right.
The one part that I always emphasize is the importance of getting out in front, communication skills. I took Toastmasters for a couple of years, and I remember I was like, it was daunting. But
Yeah.
going through that process, I became a better speaker. And many people just don't quite, they're just not, and they don't get themselves out. And if they would just do that, man, they would move so much further ahead.
So much. I mean, I can remember, it's a funny story. So I mentioned I held a leadership position in my district chapter.
Okay.
We went to this thing, you go and you have the spring events and there's all these different competitions that you can do. I remember getting on the bus and my ag teacher saying, "You're going to run for office, right?" And I was like, "Well, I have a speech prepared." And he was like, "You don't need one. Just get up there and talk." And so I literally just got up in a room, got up on the podium and started talking to people and had this, people had speeches that were prepared that had stories and they told, these, the story had a meaning and you could kind of develop the little story as you're hearing it and whatnot. I got up there and I was like, these are the 3 things that I live by, and this is Paige, and this is what I'm about. And I got a spot, and I was like, wait a minute, how does this happen? Like, but and I look back on that moment because that was so defining for everything else I've done since then. I mean, even we talked about we have HR Southwest coming up, and I'm a big proponent and supporter of HR Southwest. I've been volunteering with them for the last 4 or 5 years now,
Mm-hmm.
and we do that same thing. I've helped by getting up. We have 7 a.m. new conference attendee sunrise session, and I get up at 7 a.m. and talk about all things conference. But it's like that moment has happened over and over and over in my life, and I find there's just, I love doing that. I love getting people comfortable to do something else courageous, getting people to be brave enough to do the next step, because that's what really makes these moments and these memories that we create, is being brave enough to go the next step. And I think that's really influenced a lot of what I've done over my career.
Well, I think one of the things you mentioned earlier is you got up for the first time and you said, these are the 3 things. And I think that's a lot of times people try to make things complex and it makes things complicated. Well, if you'll just keep things simple, hey, here's 3 things you should know. 1, 2, 3, boom, I'm done. It can really help. That's fantastic. I love that story. Oh my gosh. I did not know that story. And I did not know that you were a leadership in your district. So that's fantastic. I always learn something every time I talk to you, Paige. I do want to talk about HR Southwest Conference, but before that, I want to talk a little bit about your role at Black Mountain, and I want to talk in particular about your role as the Director of HR. Obviously, you wear a lot of hats, and you do a lot with a small team. Talk a little bit about, I'm just curious, as a leader, you just mentioned COVID earlier and being able to have to shift. What are some, or is there anything that you find yourself doing a little bit different, leading a little bit different now that we're in this time of COVID, even though we're 6 months through it and we're still navigating through it? Is there anything you're doing different as a leader in your role?
I think the biggest thing that we've had to learn is how to be flexible and demonstrate our leadership abilities in different ways. We've had to move from, a very consistent office environment, Monday through Friday, everyone's here, to we haven't been to the office in quite a while. I have some people that haven't been in months. I only go in a couple of days a week. So I think, my leadership has definitely had to shift in the vein of being able to get my people together, prioritize what's important. And then, you know, a lot of delegation, a lot of saying, hey, you've got this, great, go do it. It's helped us learn to be more flexible. You know, I think as an employer, you know, one of the things we've talked about is we kind of did this schedule of letting people work from home. And in the oil and gas industry, that's something that has had lots of resistance for years and years and years. And all of a sudden this year, like, we didn't have choice. So we had to let our people work from home, and you do that, and then you sit on the edge of your seat going like, oh my gosh, are all these projects going to fall through the crack?
Right.
Or are people going to answer the call and do what they need to do to get work done and keep moving? And we've been lucky enough to have people that answered the call, got their jobs done, and we kept going. And we've been able to see that work can get done when not all your people are in the office. We have had a lot of people express how much happier they've been when they've had a little bit more work-life balance than they've ever had the opportunity to have. So I think, you know, in terms of how it's influencing our leadership, you know, I think I feel like we're in the middle of that movement. There's, you know, you talk about, you know, the change process. You unfreeze, you move things around, and you refreeze. Well, we're totally in that unfrozen moment because everybody's flexible right now. We're not all back to work. Everybody who's in a leadership position and has people reporting to them has had to change their way of, you know, you don't get to see everybody every day. So you got to be a little more willing to call them on the phone and have that conversation. Hey, how's it going? What you doing? Okay, great. I love what you're doing. Keep going. Click. Goodbye. Call the next one. I've really had to rely on finding ways to have that human interaction because you're not getting it all the time. You're not getting that face-to-face conversation. I can't see the body language that I'm getting back. So that's really I think that's had a big impact on how we've adjusted. You know, we're having regular meetings every week by phone. Everybody's calling in, everybody's contributing, and then we get off and go away. And I think that's something, you know, you mentioned earlier, you know, being succinct. Here's my 3 things. Glad everything's going great. Move on. I think that's also something else that we've had to really focus on, because when we were in the office all 5 days of the week, you know, you have a lot of time for distraction and other things to fall in. And some of that is really good. Some of that's very healthy. How's your family? How's your dad? You know, but then also some of that can get in the way of, oh my gosh, I have 10,000 things on my plate and all these people keep coming in my office and distracting me. So in a nugget, I think that just learning how to be flexible but still be present in people's, you know, in your employees' lives, you know, is kind of the method the path we're headed down. And that takes courage too, you know. Not everybody who's a manager is not super comfortable calling their people at home and saying, hey, what are you doing? Because it feels kind of invasive of their privacy at some point. But you do have to call and say, hey, what are you doing? What are you working on? And be able to navigate that conversation where you're not big brothering them, you know, you're not micromanaging them. You're just saying, I need to connect with you and see what's going on, and then we can move on.
I love how you talk about that, because that, when I think about what you just now said, that's really about really becoming a more authentic leader. Right. I mean, because like we're in each other's homes right now. I mean, this is the world we're in. Like, and so, you know, I was sharing with somebody not too long ago that I think for me, I've learned a couple of things. Number one, I have much more empathy, even though I always have much more empathy for working parents. You're a working parent. Because I had my grandkids over at my house this summer because of course, my wife was out of school. And I'm working from home and they're here, and it was tough. Like that was, hey, Bruce, can you help with this? I'm like, no, I'm on a call. I mean, it's really, or Crosby coming over and getting on the video Zoom or whatever. Really, yeah. I mean, so number one, so having more empathy, giving grace, right? To, hey, you know what? It just, things are, you know, we're unable to get something done or connect or whatever it is. I think that's one thing, but I've heard a lot of leaders also talk about transitions a little bit different. And so like for me, I would go to work and you have that drive, listen to the podcast, and then you go to another meeting, maybe to the health HR office, maybe go do a survey. So for me, it's like all these transition moments that all of a sudden I quit having those transition moments. And I had to really be intentional and purposeful about putting those into my day. And
Right.
during those times, that's when I might reach out, like, cause I might be on the road anyway and calling someone, reach out purposefully and making those calls and doing those check-ins.
Yeah. I think definitely, repurposing how you spend your time is pivotal in
Mm.
um, remaining successful, I think, in this kind of environment, because you think about like quick flash in a hurry, everybody was working from home and you were like, but I don't have an office at home. What do I do?
Right. Go buy a microphone.
I mean, I laugh. One of my HR generalist that works for me, like we come into the office and she's got her keyboard in her bag, and like when we leave, she puts the keyboard back in her bag and takes it home. And I'm like, this is so funny. We have to carry all this stuff around just to be functional. But I think that you definitely had to. For me, it made me refocus on, okay, what are those things that I do every day that make me keep moving in a forward movement, keep making me have progress, keep moving, keep going. Because I can remember the first like 2 weeks, it was just like cluster, because I got kids, they like school, no school, work. Oh my gosh, what's the most important things to get done? We talk about like goal setting, and every day you have different goals that are important to get done, because we work in the world of HR where nothing is the same from day to day. And
Yeah.
so, not having those moments when I could like have that 20 minutes from home to work where I can just jam out and play my music and get in tune with like, okay, here's what I'm going to get done today. Cause that for me, like that time going to work, that was my moment to just kind of get my head centered. Like my kids are at school, or, they're not in this vehicle where they've been for the last 6 months. And that was my time to get centered. What do I need to get done today? How am I going to do it? What's important to me? I think having that daily reminder of what's important to me, why am I doing this?
Like
You gotta, I think it's so important to remember to keep visiting those, even if it's not sitting down with a journal and writing it. If it's just every day stopping for 5 seconds and saying, reminding yourself, this is why I'm doing this. This is where I'm headed. You talk about, I think a lot, very relatable to, talking about leadership, finding your lane, making sure you're in those boundaries. Because sometimes we have things that happen during our daily course of work that might kind of throw us off into a ditch. And you gotta remember to get back out of the ditch and get back in between, mayonnaise and mustard, and keep it going. And so I think not having that has really made a lot of leaders have to sit down and go, okay, now I'm home. I've got to kind of find a new way to prioritize what's important, move through my day. In some ways it's been really nice because, when I'm at home, I can be on the phone and I can hop up and put a load of laundry in and keep talking on the phone and things keep going. Which I think is really cool. But then also, like the days where we have online learning and my children are at home, I turn into a crazy person.
Right.
Because the kids are trying to learn, I'm trying to work, we got lots of chaos going on. And, I think too, that's been some great training for me, is to have some little consistent chaos. Because, as a leader, you have to be able to be cool under pressure. And so I think that's been some good kind of on the job training that I've been getting that I didn't ask for.
Yeah, I didn't ask for this. Oh, that's great.
So,
I love that.
that's probably a little bit of a hyper-focused view than maybe what we wanted today, but it's
That's fantastic. On the job training. Oh my gosh, that's funny. Yeah, I didn't ask for this, but you're getting it. Oh man, that's awesome. Before I get off this topic, I think one other thing is that I've had to also be purposeful about, we're going to talk about HR Southwest conference here. But it's fine being intentional about continuing to develop not only ourselves, but finding things to help our people develop along the way. So we don't get caught up in the work, 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 block, work. It's like work, work. Okay, now let's have some personal development here, because we got to keep growing. We got to keep learning, whether it's something in our industry, whether it's something to be a better communicator or being in front of the camera, whatever.
Or whether it's fourth grade math.
Yeah, fourth grade. Yes. So just continuing to develop along the way in that. I think that's important. Let's talk about this conference. HR Southwest Conference. I am so excited about this conference. I've been attending this conference for many, many years. I'm getting to speak again once at this conference, so I'm really excited about that. You are part of the Educational Sessions Committee. And I was just curious, can you share a couple things? Number one, how long have you been going to this conference? And what is your role as a member of the Educational Sessions Committee?
So I've been going to this conference since, I believe, 16.
Okay.
And I love this conference. It's my favorite conference. I'm probably biased because it's in Fort Worth, and I think that's part of what makes it so great. But so I serve currently on the Educational Sessions Committee. And so what we do in a normal setting is we work in the beginning part of the year to help curate all of the speaker choices. We send out proposals. We review everything that comes back in, and we help go through and review speakers by their ratings of previous years. We take a look at where else have you spoke before. We take a look at their topic, their proposal of what they're going to speak about. And we go through that, and we do this in a committee. So there's about 10 of us that serve on this committee. We divide up all the proposals because there's like 500 proposals. So, I mean, that task alone would be almost undoable. So luckily you have a lot of hands to spread that work around. We come together as a committee and say, this is how we rated whoever we reviewed. We tend to divide them up by tracks because a lot of the content is divided into its functional track. Makes it easier for both us just to classify them and review them, and also for the attendee to take a look at our huge schedule and say, like, what do I want to attend? So we divide them up, we review them. We have a big meeting, typically in April, where we sit down all together in a room and go through the exercise of scheduling all those educational sessions across the 4 days of content. So time slots, getting them all fixed, making sure you don't have too many of the same topics going on at one time, which is kind of a big, we set it all up in the room on the wall, and it's a big puzzle piece, which is super fun to put all that together. And then at the conference, when that happens, this year obviously is going to be a little bit different because we are virtual.
Okay, yep.
But typically when we're in person, we serve as that on-site committee to organize all the speakers. You got people coming in at different times. We serve as the kind of boots on the ground organization. We're the people that keep the things going, make sure that speakers show up, make sure their technology is working, make sure the room isn't too cold, all the things that go into putting on a conference and a great experience. That's kind of what that committee is committed to doing. This year, it's a little bit different because we're virtual. So we're going to be available during the conference sessions that are going on. A lot of our educational sessions are going to be pre-recorded. So they're going to play at their time slot that they were scheduled, but then also we're going to have our speakers available to do live Q&A.
Oh, that's
so, great. We're going to be on standby, making sure technology's working. Big old fingers crossed, because technology is going to make it or break it. So
technology is king on it. I like how you have the speakers there during those times, so that way they can continue to interact, create that experience for the attendees. And you've got a great team. I mean, this year's conference led by Chrissy Rogers. She is absolutely terrific. Talk a little bit about your team and what that looks like.
So our team is, we've got it's led by our director and director-elect, who are kind of our leaders of our team. And then we've got our 8 committee members, and they, we really just we have committee meetings within our own committee, but our director and director-elect, they participate in the board meetings as well.
I see. Okay.
So we have that's kind of how we filter our information up and down the chain a little bit, because to have all of us go to all those meetings would be a
Oh
lot.
my goodness, because there's like, I mean, there's like close to 100 volunteers. And of course, the conference is powered by Dallas HR, Brad Shanklin, tremendous team, the staff leading that. I mean, it's a big conference. I'm really excited about this virtual conference this year because I think that it's still going to be a great conference experience because that's how Dallas HR has just always done that, provided this incredible experience. You were also involved, you've been involved in the Student Engagement Committee in years past, and I've really enjoyed watching what you've done. Talk a little bit about that. Like if you're a college, student going to the conference, I mean, it's daunting, right? I mean, for an on-site, you don't know anybody, you don't know what to do, but you have been able to come in and somehow magically make people feel warm and welcome and invited and all of the above. And I've enjoyed watching you do that. So you look like you've had a good time doing that too.
So much of a good time. And I would say, if you had to ask me what changed in our approach that made that more successful, because when I started with the Student Engagement Committee in 17, we didn't have very many student attendees to the conference. It kind of hovered right around 30. And part of our purpose for being in that committee was to drive up the attendance to the conference. And to be successful at doing that, it meant that we had to start laying groundwork way before conference ever happens. So we would go out to the student chapters in our area. We serve about 8 different universities in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. We'd go out to those chapters, attend their meetings, and sit down with those kids and say, I call them kids, they are young adults. We would sit down with them and visit about what does it mean to go to conference? Why should I go to conference? What am I going to get out of it? And just really do a lot of legwork leading up to it to make them feel comfortable, to encourage them to go. The conference also provides a wonderful scholarship program. So a lot of the kids were able to apply for the scholarships so that they could go for free. The flip side of being on the Student Engagement Committee is you also do the fundraising for the scholarship program. So you get to do a little fundraising while you're at it. But I think, really the success that we built over the 3 years, and I was blessed to be able to lead that committee with the help of Tom Barton, who served as our director before me. And he really kind of set that tone for getting out there in front of students and getting them comfortable with the idea of going to a conference, because it is very scary. You go into this big, gigantic facility full of business people, full of people that can be 2 and 3 times your age. And you're told, yeah, you need to go in there and strike up conversation and make yourself relevant. And kids are like, yeah, no thanks. So, we really laid the groundwork by going to those meetings that they have. They have regular monthly meetings, just like our chapter does. And getting up there in front of those kids, talking to them, and just really getting them, encouraging them to come. And the flip side of that is giving them that friendly face, being that connection that they have, so that when they do show up, you can introduce them to other people in the room and help destigmatize that whole networking fear of not knowing anyone and not knowing how to go talk to somebody.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I'd be remiss if I didn't say, Tom Barton, he's the current Dallas HR president. I've enjoyed watching, you both in those roles, and just, I mean, looking around the room, I was part of the orientation the last couple of years, and just at first students come in with their eyes super big, wondering what to expect. And then all of a sudden they kind of settle in and they're like, oh, okay, now I know what to do. And so you've done a tremendous job there. Before I pivot off this, I just, so HR Southwest Conference, October the 4th through the 7th, it's going to be virtual. It's going to be another fantastic event. I'm just going to ask this one question. Someone that is thinking about, this is actually going to be airing during the conference, but just for you as a past attendee, as a past or current volunteer leader, what's one thing that people should, I don't know, they should know about the conference, or something that they should expect from going to a conference like that?
I think the thing that to know about it is, no, is kind of, it's a twofold experience. You go in, and for one, there's a lot of wonderful educational content that gets delivered from excellent speakers on relevant new topics that, are just budding in our industry that we don't really know how to deal with yet. So I think number one is the educational content that you get out of it is amazing. The fact, especially being this year, that you can get so much, you're getting more credit this year than you typically can get in the past, which is one of the perks of being able to do it virtually.
Yeah, I heard there's
Um,
like close to 30 credit, maybe 31 credits,
yeah,
something like it. Don't quote me there, but I think it's a lot.
it's a lot, and a lot of our attendees are certified professionals that need those hours to maintain that credential. So the fact that you can come to our conference and get so much in one spot, I think is a super selling point. The other thing to know about it is, when you go to a conference, especially if you haven't been before, you tend to not know, how is this organization that puts this conference on, are they welcoming of new people and sharing that information, or are they closed off and do they not really tell you much? And I would say, from my experience and the experiences that I've heard from attendees that have taken my advice, signed up for conference and gone, is they were like, oh my gosh, I didn't know that there were all these professionals in this huge network, and how welcoming Dallas HR is to providing those resources and providing those opportunities to make those connections. I think that's part of what, a lot of HR professionals, that's kind of what they fear, is getting in there and connecting with people. And the conference is such a wonderful place to do that, because you're surrounded with so many like-minded people who want to connect, but share that same kind of hesitation. So, I work during conference when, especially when we're there in person. Now, I don't know how much it'll be during the virtual experience this year, but, really working to just talk to people and say, have you met so-and-so? Y'all share like-minded, y'all both work in the same industry, or you're both directors of companies, or, just kind of helping people connect, because I think that's the biggest value of going to conference, is connecting with people and meeting someone who is either in your same spot and can be that colleague that you can share things with and learn from, or meeting someone who's in that spot above you and can give you that career advice, or meeting, the right people in the right places. I mean, that's a lot of how navigating a career is about, is knowing people in different places and getting those pieces of advice and being able to share the knowledge and work your network.
Yeah, I like how you integrated connecting. I mean, I think at the end of the day, yes, educational programming is going to be incredible. It's good. It's going to help you grow, but that connectivity, and I think that I've been to one virtual conference, and I love how you can still connect there. You just have the same strategies apply. First, you have to show up, right? You were there, you show up for the virtual conference, and then you have to have the courage to reach out and connect with others and you have to engage into the conversation during the presentation. So if you'll show up and you'll engage, and then you reach out and connect, you can still have an incredible experience and make some new connections along the way. So I'm excited about that. I was going to mention Erin Swain. I know that she's director of programming or education for Dallas HR. And this is also the official state conference for Texas SHRM. And so you have Texas SHRM, Kathy Hardcastle, the state director, Jimmy Taylor, the assistant state director, and just a SHRM. It's a big deal. It's like, I think there's close to 2,000. When you count exhibitors, you count everyone involved, close to 2,000 people, one of the largest HR conferences in the country. So really excited about it. I'm so glad we got to talk a little bit about that, because I think we both have a passion for that conference, the organization. And so super excited for Chrissy and Brian coming up, and all the different volunteer leaders. I want to just shift our last 15 minutes or so. I want to talk, we're talking a lot about leadership and helping others. We're talking about teams, we're talking about, let's talk about leading ourselves. And, leadership is hard. It just is hard. You were talking earlier about, as a working parent, and, and all the different things going on. I would just love if you could just, I always try to pull out, like, what is something you try to do as a leader every day to keep you on track? So what's a day in the life of Paige look like? I mean, what time do you typically get up, and is there a couple of things you do every day that kind of keeps you in line with where you want to go?
Oh, a day in the life. Which day do you want, Bruce?
Right. Exactly. Right. That's not pre-COVID or post-COVID. It's like every day. Oh my goodness. How about
Uh,
today?
I would say, a day in the life. Obviously, it starts with getting my kids up, getting them ready. On days we get to go to school, I hurriedly drive them to school and kick them out. But then it's about, being focused on my business, my work. One of the things I've had to learn, and it's been different throughout the time that I've been working, specifically at Black Mountain, because I joined Black Mountain. I was like the 7th hire in the company. So I literally have been there since the bottom, since we built it up from the ground. And so I've gone through these waves of where, I was working so much, I couldn't turn it off. We run a 24/7 business. So, we have production going on at all times of the day. And it's hard, it's hard when you know that you have employees working all the time to
Mm,
not kind of constantly feel that, checking my phone all the time. Like, is there any safety report that's come in? Because it can happen. And it never happens at 2 o'clock on Tuesday. It happens at 3 a.m. on Saturday when something goes wrong.
right. Oh, of course.
So, so we've gone through this period of, it kind of ebbs and flows. We've built this company way up. So I worked for a lot of 19, just worked at random times, all the time. It just felt like, you're recruiting, you're running a business, you're setting those foundations. So it never goes off. So, for me, I think making sure every day, pre-COVID, post-COVID, whatnot, is, getting up, getting my kids out, getting everybody off on their path for the day. And then having, when I go to work, I have that transition where I get to jam out. I'm a big music buff. So jamming out in my car is that's where it's at.
Yeah, I
So
had Camille Tate on earlier this year. She says the same thing. It's about the music.
it is. So, but really having that short little 20 to 30 minutes to just hear, and I play different stuff. People ask me, well, what music do you listen to? And I'm like, it depends on my flavor of the day, but it's that I listen. For one thing, I'll say consistently, it's music that is very upbeat and that will energize me, because that's kind of what gets me focused on, okay, I'm ready to get going with my day. And then when I get to work, the first thing that I always do is I sit down and I have about 30 minutes that I can look at my calendar, see what's coming up, make sure that, there's not a big neon bus about to slap me in the face. Sitting down and setting my priorities straight, doing my daily to-do list. What are the top 3 things I got to make sure I get done today? And then, just kind of rolling with my day after that. The days that I find the days I don't sit down and kind of make that little list are the days that my little navigational beacon just goes off.
Mm,
And so that for me is really super important, sitting down and saying, okay, today, these are the must-do things I got to get done. And then also remembering to, take 5 seconds and just say, what's the big goal I'm reaching for right now? Because my goals change. My goals evolve with what I'm doing. If I'm volunteering on student engagement versus volunteering on ed sessions, it's a little bit of a different goal. You have these overarching goals that you're striving for, this year, where am I headed? What am I going to do with my career? What do I want to do personally? And I think it's important too, not to lose sight of working on yourself. As leaders always have to keep working on themselves. They seek continuous learning. We seek understanding. You're always reading the best leadership book or the best podcast or the best, grabbing all the tips you can grab to keep making yourself a better person. And so I think it's important to always remember to spend a little bit of that time each week working on yourself and working on making sure you're doing a little bit of self-care, a little bit of self-love, so that you have that energy to give to other people. Because I think, you can't be an effective leader without having, kind of having some of that chaos in check, where you can sit down and clearly, say, what does my team need of me today? What does my family need of me this week? When I worked on student engagement, it was real important that we sat down, it was probably more like an every month type of activity, but sitting down and saying, what do our students need from us this month? Well, they need us to get out there and talk to them, and they need us to be on the look for any internships that, if we're getting close to the end of semester, we got people hitting us up for internships. And so, just kind of keeping that little navigational beacon. And I have a journal, a little pocket, the little journals. And that thing goes with me everywhere. That's where I jot, quick moments, quick thoughts I have, where it's where my daily to-do list is. And then I'm real funny, like I'm a list maker, so I got to mark it off. And then also, whenever I finish the page, I'm real big about, like, I have to fold the page in half, and then I'm done with it. So
I love that.
kind of quirky, but
No, I love it. I mean, listen, that's your lane. I love that. I'm a big fan of journals. You know that. I love how you talked about, the days that you write those 3 things down seem to go different than the days that you're not intentional. I love how you share that. And I think a lot of people will appreciate you sharing that, because we've all been there. We're like, we all have good intentions. We have this routine, and then one day we just don't do, we just do something different. And all of a sudden that's when, we have chaos. So no, I appreciate that. That's fantastic. Oh my gosh. Listen, we could talk all day. This is fantastic. Love your energy. I love your passion. Always have. Big fan. But let's we're gonna pivot over here. We're gonna go to the segment called "It's Time to Accelerate." So I'm gonna ask you a few questions. I know earlier you said something about a podcast. I know you like reading books. What's your favorite? Is there a favorite for book or podcast?
So I am a book person. I like having that hard copy. I'm a little bit old school in that fashion, because I like having that hard copy where I can write and make notes and highlight and fold the page over if I don't like what it says. But, and I would say, I love to read leadership books. I'm not a big crime novel. I'm not a big fantasy story novel. Like, I really love books that kind of, I live my life intentionally and purposefully. And so if I'm reading a book, it needs to be teaching me something about that. But I do have a fun fact. My favorite childhood book, and it's always been my favorite, is Mr. Popper's Penguins.
Ah,
So
very nice. Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Okay, I did not know that. Okay, so I'm just going to say something real quick before I move on here. I know we're getting ready to close down, but we were talking about HR Southwest conference earlier, and you talked about the connecting and how those can be game changers. And so I remember about 3 years ago, Tom Barton and you and me were sitting down saying, we need to start a book club.
Yep.
And we sat down and we said, okay, let's read. Do you remember the book? Dare to Lead.
Dare to Lead.
By Brene Brown. And
Yep.
we started reading this book, and we invited Kelly Miller along the way. And so all 4 of us were reading this book and talking. And then we, just kept that going. And since then, we've taken that online and now created a group of over 120 strong right now in this book club called CLIMB, which stands for Connect, Lead, Inspire, Mentor, and Build. And that all started from that conversation. You remember that?
I do.
That is fantastic. Oh my gosh, that is, oh man. Okay.
One of my favorite memories.
Right? Oh my gosh. Okay, so I got 2 more questions I'm going to ask you. I think I know the answer to this question, but what energizes you?
People energize me, and music, of course, if I could plug that one more time. But people are what energize me. I can tell on a day when I haven't had a lot of people interaction, it's just like my oomph is missing. My get up and go, my why it's missing. And those days that I have different people interactions are the days that I feel very energized, ready to tackle the new project, ready to go, do whatever, put me on a path and let's go do it. And so that is probably what's been one of the biggest struggles very personally for me for the COVID, is because I have not had a lot of people interaction. So, I haven't had my normal social lunches and outings and meetings and trainings, and I haven't had a lot of that. And so, we've definitely been able to get that virtually, but it's just different when you're with people, when you have that face-to-face interaction, you have body language, you just connect differently with people when you're in a real live setting. So I think, of everything that energizes me, I have to be interacting and hanging out with people, and that's where I get it from. And I store it all up and have to use it, but then you gotta go replenish it. So I gotta be with people.
Fantastic. I actually recorded this morning. I actually recorded a video about, I've felt so full lately. And I was thinking about why is that? And my recording was around, I've had so many great conversations on this podcast with people that has just, I'm the same way. It's like, it just fuels you, it's a fuel. And my video was really talking about, many times we are measuring our success by our numbers or by, all these things we need to hit, when really I'm measuring it by alignment, like with what's important. And right now, connectivity is very important during this time. And so I love how you said that. Yvonne Freeman actually said the same thing on the podcast as well. People, I love it. Okay. Favorite food?
Oh, that's a hard one. I'm a foodie. I'm such a foodie. And it's my husband's fault. I don't know. I will say, I got a lot of different favorite foods that I love, but the one thing I do love is getting to, my husband loves to cook at home. And that's probably one of my most fun, like, hobby kind of things, is he loves to cook lots of different things. He likes to experiment and make things for fun. And so that's a lot of where we get to spend kind of our one-on-one time together, is in the kitchen cooking stuff. And that's where we have hard conversations. That's where we connect and have happy conversations. That's just kind of where everything happens for us. It's kind of like in the kitchen over food. So, but I'm a foodie buff. Like, all kinds of food is so good. Like, you can't, those people that I meet that they're like, I don't like, they have this long list of, I don't like all these things. I'm kind of like, oh, you're missing out on so much. I do have a quirky thing about food. I don't like hairy fruit.
You don't like what food?
Hairy fruit.
What?
Like kiwis and peaches. Oh.
Okay, now we know. Okay, by the way, I love how you, kitchen counter talk. I love that. The conversations in the kitchen. That needs to be your next book, by the way. Conversations in the kitchen. That would be fantastic. Okay, I have a final question for you as we wrap this up. And this is a question I love to ask all my guests. And I would love to ask you, and that is this: 10 years older Paige is knocking at your door like today, and you answer that door. What is she telling you?
That one, there's probably a lot of things that she's going to be screaming at me. I think the number one thing is stop caring about what others think and give yourself permission to live a big life. I think that that's a big thing that I'm probably, you're always going down a path. And I kind of hit a path where, my children are older now. They're not babies. They're independent little people. I have a 4th grader and a kindergartner. So we are thick in the celebration of, championing that independence of getting to go to school and do your own schoolwork. And because we've had 6 months of online COVID that mom is not a fan of. So I think probably, 10-year-old me probably is saying, if you're feeling like there's something you want to chase, there's a dream, there's something to do, go do it. stop being afraid of what people are going to think, because it doesn't matter what they think. It matters what I think. And we talk about that a lot. You know, the only person responsible for you is you. So you only get one chance here to do what you want to do with it. Don't be afraid to go chase that dream, go do that thing. I look at my children as they continue to grow, and I challenge myself to be courageous for them, to show them bravery, to show them to don't be afraid and go off and try something and succeed. We recently went on a family vacation, and we rented a houseboat, and we went on a lake with some of our very dear friends from our neighborhood that we live in. And I got up on this cliff with my son, and we cliff dived or cliff jumped. I didn't dive. Let's face it. I totally just jumped. I've never done that in my entire life. And it's having those moments with my kids where it's like, I want them to be brave, but I know that they're not going to learn to be brave unless they see me being brave. So I think that's probably a big thing right now. If 10-year-old today walked in the door and was knocking on my door, she's going to tell me, like, you have no reason to be holding back. You need to go.
That's so good. That's so good. Dream big, be courageous. Oh man, that's fantastic. Oh man, let me just tell you.
You can't, you have to be a little bit older in life to actually harness and do those things. Like, you couldn't have told 21-year-old me to be brave and do that. Like, I did not have all this together yet.
I'm with you.
And I still don't have it all together. I'm a little bit better, but I'm a work in progress.
We're getting better every day. I love that. I actually just got through reading a book called The Magic of Thinking Big. And there's so much in there. I'm like, yes. I mean, I'm the same way. At 21, I didn't have that confidence, and that I had at 31, that I had at 41. And today I'm like the same way. I'm like, bigger. Don't be afraid to go bigger, right? I mean, just, you got to be you. Yvonne Freeman has that quote in my mile markers, be brave, be you. And I'm like, yeah, that's that simple. Be brave, be you. So,
and I think too, like, we're in the era of social media where we're able to be us in a lot of different ways. I think that something that's important is never forgetting to be the authentic you in whatever medium you're being you. Don't lose the authenticity of being yourself, and stop worrying about what everybody else thinks. Everybody's got their own opinion, and that's fine. They're entitled to it. And it doesn't matter. Like, don't be afraid of that.
Well, you are an authentic leader. That is for sure. Listen, I don't know where the time has went. I mean, our time is up, but I just want to tell you, I'm honored to just be able to record this conversation and share this with others, because I know this is going to help people that are listening, that are in a position, that are right now thinking, should I be thinking bigger? And all of a sudden, yeah, I do need to think bigger. And so this is going to help them. So I appreciate you sharing that. If someone wanted to connect with you, Paige, or follow you, or how is the best way they would do that?
Best way to follow me is, of course, socially. I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, and I'm on LinkedIn. Connect with me at any of those places. You have to find me at Paige Lueckemeyer, which is a beast to spell, but I promise it's worth it. So go search me up, find me, connect. I love to connect with people. I love to just have conversation about anything you want to talk about. I think that's where we learn really cool things in life, is sharing conversation with other people. So come one, come all.
I will put that in the show notes so people will be able to find you. What a day. What a day of connecting. You've been energizing. So you energized me. And I appreciate you just coming in, sharing your perspective and your wisdom. I'm so grateful. And most of all, I appreciate your friendship.
Well, I'm honored to be on the show. I'm honored to think that at this point in my tiny little career that you think I have enough things to share. So I can promise you the thing that I take away from this is to just continue going, continue seeking, continue to build on the things we've built on already. And who knows what we'll have to talk about in 10 years.
Hey, keep climbing, my friend. I can't wait for part 2.
That's it.
All right. Have a great day.
Bye.